Welcome to episode 10 of the ConunDRUM with Dre. This week I have a big guest by way of Terry Whalen from the Terry Whalen Band and now going to be known as Terry Whalen and Hot Powder. He is a multiple ECMA Music New Brunswick nominee, multiple Music New Brunswick award winner. I was honored to be a part of his band in from 2014 to 2016. Played a lot of festivals. 2015 was part of the lineup that won Blues Artist of the Year with him. So that was a good time. A lot of great shows, a lot of big stages. Got to meet a lot of cool people, all in the name of music and friendship. Which we talk about in the podcast. Terry is a straight up genuine guy who, above all else, loves the human element of being a musician. And he champions that as well as being yourself. So it was a great chat. We got to know some of the background, where he comes from, and kind of where he's going. So without further ado, we're going to get right into the episode because we have a good long chat. I hope you enjoy it. It's a lot of responsibility being front and center.
It is.
It's a lot of pressure. That's why I stay behind the kit because, I can sneak off after a show for the most part.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. There's no question. A lot of people don't appreciate, could be band members, could be just people watching, think that.
Yeah.
I think that everything that we do is just get out and play. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
A lot of preparation, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite part is the prep. I mean, the show is the payoff, but there's a lot of fun in the preparation and putting in the work. Yeah.
We can put this all part of our interview. So we're wasting our.
So I started recording before you came on the screen.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
So always be recording.
Always be recording. Good point. All right.
So how you been? How's your neck? I know you had a surgery there. So
no, it wasn't my neck. It was my back.
Okay.
I had spinal fusion surgery, emergency surgery, actually. May 5th, day after May the 4th.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool. May the 4th, I found out I needed a surgery. So I've been having back problems for over 25 years. I heard of playing gentlemen's hockey, if you believe that or not.
I was gonna say, is that an old sports injury? Yeah.
It is, yeah. All the years I played competitive hockey, up through university hockey, never an injury. Then I decided to play gentlemen's hockey, and some guy come up behind me and slew footed me, and I landed on my back, and I got up, and I was quite mad at the guy. And it wasn't until the next day that all of a sudden I was laid up, and I healed eventually, but it was a lot of pain. I was couldn't walk, and I just have dealt with the pain off and on throughout the years. But in April, it started. Terry, my son, moved into his house in late December of, I guess it was just before the pandemic, right? It'll be December 2020. And, obviously lifting furniture, and I've always been the guy that takes the heavy end of everything and the bad end of everything. And so it re-aggravated, and I, was taking pain pills and doing acupuncture and physiotherapy, and then the pandemic happened, and whatever happened, something happened, but
doesn't take much.
It went real bad. I mean, worse than it had ever been before in my life. I mean, it was excruciating. So I got taken to the hospital in ambulance on the 28th of April. They gave me a shot of fentanyl. Obviously, it fixed me right up.
Yeah.
Took an X-ray and said that everything looked fine, and so sent me home. And but the next day or a day and a half later, it started wearing off. Well, the 30th, I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit very well. Couldn't lay down. I could only get around the house in an office chair. I couldn't stand. And all of a sudden, it just went. And the pain, if you would stab me, and a lot of the pain was down my sciatic, down my leg and my sciatic. If you could had to stab me, it wouldn't hurt anymore. I was like crying like a little baby, and so
Oh
they took
man.
me back in the ambulance again. And in fact, it's COVID. They're trying to get everybody home, so they were trying to send me home, and I said I can't go home. I can't walk, and I was in an unbelievable amount of pain. So eventually they admitted me, and that was a Thursday. Friday, the MRI wasn't in operation, being cleaned or something, probably COVID protocol or something. So I had to wait in the hospital all weekend. So then on Monday, May the 4th, they did an MRI and got the results. And 10 minutes later, I was in an ambulance on my way to St. John.
Jesus.
And I didn't really, I mean, everything happened so fast. I didn't have time to be worried or afraid.
Oh yeah. You get a whirlwind. You just go, you trust the process. You just keep going from one step to the next step, and then you're done. And then you're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was a rough, I was in the hospital 8 days. It was a rough 8 days. And then obviously recovery and everything was difficult. It definitely changed me, affected me as a person, priorities, look at life a little differently, and I still do. Yeah. I don't want to lose that, because I think it was important that, something positive come out of it. And, of course, a lot of songs, obviously music is a big part of my life. And, I try to write from my life experiences. So I obviously wrote a lot. Yeah. And some of that stuff is going to be on the new album that's coming up.
That's good.
Yeah.
You always take, like they say, you take pain and turn it into art, right? I mean, that's kind of what we do,
It is, as musicians, we take, and a lot of times it is pain, and sometimes you the good things, you almost don't savor those things like you should. Yeah. I know you and I have been part of some pretty big shows on big stages, and I've always been guilty of not just take 2 seconds, just kind of look out and go, wow, this is cool. Yeah. Yeah. I've always been after the fact, man, how come I didn't enjoy that a little bit more, but you're so busy in the moment, making sure everything's going right. And,
and everything's going 100 miles an hour. So you can't pump the brakes to slow down, to just take it in. Not until after the fact. And then you're out of the moment. You're just remembering what it felt like. And 100%. Yeah.
Oh no, I've been very guilty of that through the years, and I'm trying to just take a moment and I'll even verbalize it. Hey, look, I just need a second to like, this is cool. I just want, and just, man, take it in.
Take it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, going back into the world of Terry Whalen, where were you born? Like, where'd you grow up?
I was born in Moncton. My parents are from Miramichi, Newcastle, Nordine. Actually, they lived. My parents lived probably 2 miles apart from each other, and one on one side of the causeway by the French Fork Cove, and one on the other side. And where my father grew up, where Whalen's barn was. Yeah, and but my father was working away in Nova Scotia, and so my mother went to stay with her sister-in-law, my aunt and uncle in Moncton, and that's where I was born. And then they, come back to Miramichi. Okay. And then, we stayed in Miramichi until end of grade 1, and my father was in construction, and we moved to St. John, and we were down in St. John. Actually lived in Fairvale, which is now Quispam-Sis. Lived down there for 3 years, and then eventually made it back to Miramichi. And so Miramichi's home, and I've lived other places as well. I mean, I moved away from home in grade 11 to play junior hockey in St. John, and then come back, and university, of course, in Fredericton, and moved for a short while with my family, my wife Donna and son Terry and Krista. We lived for 6 or 7 years in Fredericton, and then I got a teaching job back in Miramichi in '97, and been back here ever since.
Okay. Yeah. So did you have any siblings growing up, or were you the only guy?
No, I did. I have one brother, Derek. He's about a year and a half younger than I am. Okay. And it's a funny thing, actually. He's a year and a half younger, so a year behind me in school. But when I was in grade 1, I had pneumonia really, really bad. I remember going into the hospital. It was still snow on the ground when I came out. It was summer, it seemed like. Wow. And I had a relapse in grade 2. So I fell behind in school. So grade 3, they kept me back. So I ended up failing grade 3. So all of a sudden, my brother and I are in the same grade. And we graduated from high school together, went to St. Thomas, graduated from there together. And then 7 years later, decided to go back and do my education degree and become a teacher. And he did too. So we graduated together 3 times. He
People
never
must have thought
became,
you were twins,
yeah, and we're not. I mean, it's so much
right?
different.
Yeah, yeah,
He's built more like my mother, and I'm built more like my father. So
yeah, yeah.
he's a tiny little guy compared to me. And but yeah, we've always been close. And but he, you know what? He's got an education degree, but never ever taught. He owned a private company. He now works for the Port Authority in Halifax and has a
Right.
nice job. And a couple of boys. One graduated last year, and another one graduating this year.
Okay.
I married a girl from St. John's, Newfoundland. So they're down in the Halifax area and doing
Okay.
well. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Doing well for himself.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't think I've ever met him.
No, and he's actually coming home this weekend. He doesn't get home a whole lot, once a year kind of deal, you know,
Yeah.
with young family, especially in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and now his boys are working, so they're working a lot on weekends, and he'll come up a couple times to stay for a night or two and just to visit with the family.
Okay.
And I'll have to get a picture on, put it up on Facebook, say, yeah, I really do have a brother. Here he is. So
Yeah, he wasn't an imaginary friend or nothing like that.
no, he's not a musician. And, you know, he probably about 10 years ago, he bought an acoustic guitar, and then he bought his kids guitars. And, you know, and even growing up, I was always the one with the stereo on the records. And if I was away, he'd be in there listening to my records. But, you know, he, he just never got the bug like I did, you know.
Yeah. So like for music, was that always something playing in the house? Like where did that come from then? If he's not in the music
right.
like you are.
Well, that's a very good question, because I think I got the music bug probably when I was 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought an old car. I actually wrote a song about this that hasn't been released, but we bought an old car. I don't know what it was, but it had an 8-track player in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a CCR's Greatest Hits, as I remember, and a couple other 8-track tapes. And I used to sit in the car in the driveway and run the battery down, listen to those 8 tracks. And that was my introduction to music. There was no music in the house. There was no record player unless you saw something on TV. You know, I don't know what it would be. Lawrence Welk obviously wasn't very interesting or appealing to me at that time, but the bug was there. I remember jumping on the bed with a broom or a badminton racket, pretending I was playing guitar. And obviously I started asking for guitars and drums and banjos, and, you know, tight, you know, single parent working, you know, blue collar family.
Yeah.
There was never any money for that. And we were a sports family. So any money that came into the house was for a ball glove or a new pair of skates.
Yeah, yeah.
There was no extra money to buy guitars or instruments.
Okay.
And
so when did you actually finally get a guitar?
so I moved away from home in grade 11, as I said. I moved to
Yeah.
St. John, went to St. Malachy's High School, played junior hockey down there. One of the guys on the team had electric guitar and an amp. And I knew that because during tryouts, I had stayed at his house. And I said, you have an electric guitar and amp? He said, oh yeah, I never play those. You want it? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I'll sell it to you for $50. And it was a Mansfield Jaguar copy, a little PAX amp that had no overdrive or anything.
No.
So that was my first guitar. And so it was missing 3 or 4 strings. So I went down to the local music store in St. John. It was called Moody's Music Store.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, and bought a set of Fender Bullet strings and brought them home. No tuner, had no idea how to tune a guitar, and broke 2 strings while I'm putting them on. So next day I had to go back and buy another set of strings and make sure they weren't quite as tight.
Yeah. Did you get a tuner that time, or?
I didn't get a tuner. I had no idea that such a thing existed. So it probably wasn't in concert pitch, and it probably wasn't in tune very often, other than 1 or 2 strings. And I just played on 1 or 2 strings, and I just noodle, up and down the neck. I didn't know chords. I bought my first guitar magazine at that time. It was it was Peter Frampton on the cover. I don't still have that. It was funny. That was the first guitar magazine. It was Guitar World, or no, Guitar Player.
Yeah.
And I bought it, and that was the first one. And then I think the second one was Pat Metheny on the cover, and the next one was Gary Richrath, who I think was the guitar player for REO Speedwagon. I think that was the third one. I have a pretty good memory for the past.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I didn't know what I was reading. I didn't know what I was looking at. You know, eventually, I tell you, after I played junior there a little bit, I went back and finished high school in Miramichi, and still had no idea how to tune a guitar. Just fool around. So it made it very hard to play chords if the guitar wasn't in tune. I had no friends that played guitar. I had an uncle that played guitar and was good, Clarence Taylor. He plays in around Miramichi with some Miramichi fiddlers and that kind of thing. And so I got to university, and I had this electric guitar, and so I brought it to Fredericton, and everyone was in residence had an acoustic guitar. I said, "Oh, you're gonna learn to play guitar, you better start on acoustic." So I went down to Tony's Music Box, took my electric guitar and amp, and traded it for a Fender acoustic.
Oh, nice.
And on the counter, I saw electronic guitar tuner. So finally, we're looking at like 2 years from grade 11 to first year university. I finally figured out that there was a tuner that I could get in tune, and it was a godsend. The university, I mean, I got a degree in political science and history, but really my major was guitar. Because you ask anyone that was in university with me, and they had to listen to the worst of times, me learning to play guitar for 4 years. I mean, if I learned how to play the MASH theme, Suicide is Painless, I mean, I played that for a year, and I would just play it nonstop. Or the first thing, real music that I learned to play was Johnny Be Good. And I'm sure I played that for 2 years, and I'm sure I played it 55 times a day. You know what I mean? Like, and I drove people crazy. But if I wasn't eating or sleeping and the odd time I went to class, I was playing guitar. And it was the best thing in the world because I learned to play guitar. And by the 4th year, I finally mustered up the nerve with my roommate, Jim Chamberlain, who lives in Bathurst, a retired teacher. We went in a coffee house together. And by this time, I've dove right in. I had a little Boss drum machine, and programmed it a little bit to get a basic beat. And my buddy Jim sang, and I played guitar with the drum machine. We did Johnny Be Good and Taking Care of Business were the 2 songs that we did. And
so was it like an open mic night kind of an idea?
Well, they called them a coffee house. So it's just a variety show, but in the cafeteria, pretty low scale, someone might get up and tell a couple jokes, or someone get up with a guitar and sing a couple songs. You could do 2 things. And they had those about once a month, and we did it twice. The first time, and I've been watching them for 4 years, the 4 years of university, and I was just chomping at the bit to want to do something, but I wasn't, up until then, I wasn't good enough to, but I had developed my chops pretty good by 4th year university. I mean, I was playing along to ZZ Top's Greatest Hits and AC/DC's Back in Black, and all kinds of stuff. So I mean, I wasn't singing. I didn't think I could sing, so I was just playing guitar. And people around the residents and people that knew me for 4 years obviously knew that I was getting better. And one guy in particular, Van Delory, who I had taken a couple of guitar lessons from. Like he's walking by my room and I'm playing along to ZZ Top, and he goes, "Wow," like, "Wow, that's impressive. You've come a long way."
So that kind of gave you the itch to start performing.
Yep.
And then, so
we did that.
Go into your first band from there, like cover band?
Did. So it was, well, actually what happened was we did these 2 coffee houses, and then we had a full-fledged variety show in the theater. And I put a band together with a guy named Mark Kavanaugh, who's a professor and bass player down in Maine. He plays in a Elton John tribute band called Yellow Brick Road. They play big shows, a very successful band. Another drummer, Marcel, and I wish I could remember his last name, but he was from Quebec. And we put together a little trio. And we did 2 variety shows. So I think the first one we did Jet Airliner. I'm trying to think what the second song would have been. Oh, I think it was Dr. Doctor by Robert Palmer. And then another one where the bass player, Mark, he decided to sing, and I think we did Raise a Little Hell and Everybody Wants Some by Van Halen. And I actually did part of Eruption, the part that I knew, the second half.
Nice.
So I had progressed quite a lot. But at this point, I still hadn't found the blues. I mean, I knew some blues shuffles and things like that, but I was more interested in Van Halen, Aerosmith, AC/DC, that kind of stuff. And that's the type of stuff I was trying to learn how to play. And it wasn't until I got out of university, and my first job was working at Tony's Music Box. I got a job I used to hang out there all the time through university, so I got to know everybody, and I just was looking for a job to stay in Fredericton, and they hired me. And I met a guy there that was a local DJ on CIHI, Rob Zoe, and we started hanging out, and he was a guitar player, and he really probably introduced me to the blues as much as playing it. I had heard Stevie Ray Vaughan and a couple mainstream players, but he would come over and we would work on different stuff, and he would introduce me to Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, and then once the Pandora's box was opened, I really found my voice, like, as much as I knew this type of music. I love the stories. I just love the medium for telling the stories. So that's when I really started to get into playing blues and learning, more about the blues as a guitar player, but I still wasn't singing. And I didn't think I could sing. I never believed I could. I mean, but I never did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most singers don't think they can sing. I mean, you ask any band, like the singers, like, yeah, I do it because no one else is going to do it. So someone has to, right? So,
yeah. So that took a while, a long while. I mean, so I went to work at Tony's in the summer of '87. Was only able to work there about a year, and then got married right out of university to my high school sweetheart. We started dating in high school, Donna, and we had an opportunity for her to get some work in Miramichi, so we moved back to Miramichi. And that time, just before we left, Terry was born, so away we went. And then Chris was born, 2 years later, and we stayed there. Not very long, a couple of years. I get into a family construction business with my parents, and I end up back in Fredericton, and was doing things like a lot of concrete work, and then I get into doing hardwood floors. But it was never something I was, the back issues came along about that time, so that's when I decided I was going to go back. I shouldn't say it right then, but I was going to go back to school and kind of figure out what I was going to do. But in between that, just after we moved back to Fredericton, I ran into some guys that I knew from Tony's, and we started a band. The band was called Pet Rock, and it was a cover band, and we did all the stuff from the 90s, and we do some kind of wonderful, some older stuff, and Raise a Little Hell, and did LaGrange and Tush and stuff like that. And we lost our bass player, and hard to find one, so I switched to bass.
Okay.
And we did some shows, and they found a better bass player and put me out of the band. So it was probably the good thing, but I met some great people. Yeah. And then I got back on guitar. I'm glad I didn't stay on bass. It just, I'm a guitar player, and it would have been a bad thing if I think probably looking at it now.
So when did you switch to writing your own stuff?
From the very first time I had that guitar in St. John where I couldn't put it in tune, I was writing then. I always wanted to write music. So again, it would be on one string. And I remember the first thing I really wrote, I wrote a song for Donna, who I was dating in high school. And I just took the music for House of the Rising Sun and changed all the words. So, imitation, right? So
talked about that with Kendra. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you take one song that and you just kind of tweak it to kind of start creating your own voice and realizing that, songs, you can do it yourself. Like,
yeah. But I still have scribblers from university with lyrics and tablature that I had by then started to be able to do, and just ideas. So I always wanted to do that. I mean, I always enjoyed doing covers and going variety shows and things like that, but I've always had the passion and the interest of doing original music. In fact, this first band I get into, Pet Rock, one of the things I would bring up in practice was, let's write some originals. And they would humor me for 10 or 15 minutes and then back to, so there was no one in that band that wanted to do originals. So it was always there. It was always there. Mm-hmm. So, when that band was over, 97, I get go back and do my education in 97, I get a teaching job, and we're back in Miramichi.
Yeah, yeah.
And, but by that time, my kids are little and they're into basketball and hockey and baseball. And basically all I did for 15 years was play guitar on the edge of the bed or the couch or in the dining room. And I get busy just being a dad,
Yeah.
and family man.
Yep.
And
Same.
as they get into high school and didn't want me around so much, the juices started flowing again. And I started a little cover band with some guys here in town called Flashback, doing music from the 50s, 70s, 80s.
Mhm.
And, but in the back of my head, the same thing, started practicing and I say, hey, let's write some original music. And again, no interest, from those guys that want to do that. Other than, humoring me for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so in 06 or 2006, we did a New Year's gig and I quit after the gig. And I didn't tell them why, but I knew I was going to go do original music. And Stephen McKnight, who was the manager of CD Plus at the time, has since closed. I worked with his wife at the high school, and she was an art teacher. And I, at a staff party, I happened to say that I was writing some music, and he said, "Oh man, I'd love to hear it." And because I had bought myself a little recording studio, and all the music was centered around the Rock and Roll Festival, Long Live the Jukebox and the Reunion Band, and it just, that's what I knew, right? So I wrote 5 or 6 songs, put them on a CD, dropped them off at the store, and he said, "Look, I'm really busy. I'll get to them in the next week or two."
Right.
But anyway, he went home that night and listened to them, and he left a message on my phone that night. He was near coming through the phone. He was just so excited, and he's just, "Man, we got to get together." And like he had a literature degree, so he had done some writing, poetry, and things like that. And we started working together like right away, and wrote a song. Well, we wrote probably 200 songs together in a very short period of time, and he ended up being one of the first bass players in the band as we get off the going. But I quit that band at New Year's 06, 07. And by April, I was in the studio in St. John at one of my best friend's house recording my first album. It was just, the juices were flowing, and it's just something that I wanted to do.
So those songs, were they like a collection of stuff that you'd been writing on the edge of the couch kind of thing? Or is this all stuff that you worked with Stephen?
A couple of them were, but most of them were stuff that I wrote together with Stephen, because he felt like a lot of the stuff I was writing was very local. It was about Miramichi, which wasn't a bad thing, but he was looking bigger picture. He said, that's great if you're just going to have these songs in Miramichi.
Yeah.
But, write with a more broad purpose, meaning don't make them too specific to
larger themes.
Right.
Yeah. A little,
But when we started, I had no inclination that the music was ever going to go anywhere out of Miramichi. No master plan at all, none. And so we wrote this album. I think there was 12 or 13 songs on it. There was a lot of music, and it certainly wasn't a blues album. There was a little bit of blues, but there was just a little bit of everything, just whatever come out. Stephen would be more of a folk Americana kind of guy. So there was a lot of, he would hand me some lyrics, and I was just playing, noodle around with some song ideas, and he'd go, "Oh, I like that," or try something else. And until we put together these songs, and I'm still very proud of a lot of that stuff off that first album.
Yeah. Stephen had a pretty big musical encyclopedia in his head. Working at the record store, he heard a lot of stuff. He's very well educated, like you say.
Oh, very much so. Very, very much so.
I remember going into that music store and just talking to him for hours just about different bands. And, those were the days when you'd go to a record store and just have no idea what you're looking for. And then you hear something that they're either playing in the store, or he would know you from before, and he'd kind of like point you in a direction, and then you'd kind of discover some new stuff. Like those days are long past, but I remember going in there and having those talks with him. And he was a stand-up guy.
I've always said I would not be where I am, wherever that actually is musically, without Stephen. Stephen, because when I sent him the songs, I said, "Look, I have these songs that I wrote. I couldn't find anyone to sing, so I sang them. Please, apologies." And he said, "Man, if you're going to write your own music, you got to sing your own music. You got to." I still, at this point, didn't think I could sing. And when he phoned back, I left a message on my phone, coming through the phone, said, we got to get together. And he was just, his energy was unbelievable. And he said, man, you sing. You're a great singer. And, my mother had said that a couple different times. Oh, you can sing, but that's your mother, right? I mean, you figure, oh, she's going to say that regardless of how bad.
Yeah.
So
I sound great, dear.
Yeah, exactly. But she didn't think I was much of a guitar player because of the stuff I was playing. She didn't think much Eddie Van Halen and all that stuff. But so anyway, we got together, and I think the first night we wrote a song called Sleepwalker's Blues, which ended up being the title track on the first album. So we went to the studio in April, May of 07. And
so whose studio was that?
Wes Jago.
Okay. I met Wes, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably my best friend. We've known each other since university. He's a musician, very talented.
Yeah.
And so went down there, and I gave him a guitar amp and a Les Paul guitar for studio time. He and I are always wheeling and dealing.
I was going to say, when we played that show in Quispam, he was trying to wheel and deal something off the truck that night.
I think he brought a turntable and whatever. There was a bunch of stuff come home with me that we didn't go with. You're absolutely great memory to remember that. And yes, exactly. And so I didn't pay anything for the studio time. The only thing we had to pay for was duplication. So we got 500 albums, and Stephen put them in the store. And that first year, by Christmas of 07, it was the #1 selling album in the store for the year because, first of all, he played it. People came in and bought it. And I think he sold over like 120 or 130 copies, which paid for the album, So we kept writing all that next winter, and less than 10 months later, we had our second album out. And this time, by this time, the album was just Terry Whalen, okay? Because we no preconceived ideas that there was a band or, I did most of the stuff myself, except for drums. I played all the bass, played all the guitars and vocals. So it wasn't really a band. And the second one, Stephen says, let's submit it to ECMAs. And so, all right. He said, I'm going to pay for it. I said, all right, you want to do that? So he submitted it.
He took care of the business acumen side of,
he did
stuff. Yeah.
I just was happy to be recording and, have a CD. In fact, the first CD ended up at the store what's the record store's name again?
CD Plus.
CD Plus.
Yeah. And you also was Record on Wheels at one time.
It was before that.
Yeah.
That's the name that started coming into my head. But anyway, being Whalen and one of my big influences, Van Halen, I go to the store, and what's sitting on the rack next to? You got Van Halen, Whalen, sitting right there. And I should have had a camera taking a picture of that because I never did get a picture. Van Halen 1, and probably Van Halen is one of the reasons I even picked up a guitar to begin with, because when I heard Van Halen, it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we did that. And 10 months later, we hit our second album. We submitted for ECMAs, and we get a nomination. Yeah. And we're nominated with Matt Anderson and Keith Hallett, just three of us in the blues category.
Ooh, that's some company right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So ECMAs that year in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. So we decided we're going. So we became members of Music New Brunswick. We got a showcase. We picked up another showcase that CD Plus was doing at a mall. Flew with a band. We had Stephen. I had taught Stephen how to play bass. He wasn't much of a musician at that time. So I had him on bass. I had Jimmy Larson on drums, incredible musician. And Terry, my son, I brought him along as a rhythm guitar player.
Okay.
And
how old would he have been then? Like
he would have been just 19 or 20.
Okay.
And he was just starting to learn to play guitar, but he learned the songs that we needed to play. And we went over to Newfoundland, and all of a sudden, we're part of the, the scene almost. I mean, went from playing in Miramichi to all of a sudden we're on
Atlantic, Canada. Yeah.
Atlantic, Canada, and rubbing shoulders with the Divorcees and Rick Reese and Neon Highway and just just so many others.
Well established.
Yeah. And it was an incredible experience. Corner Brook, Newfoundland in general,
beautiful
incredible
spot.
Place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that and come back home. It never won. Matt Anderson won, as he should,
as he does.
But just to be nominated, and that was the last time it was ever aired on CBC live. And we, went to the award show, and actually the camera come down and stopped right on Terry and I. It was just Terry and I there that evening, but we ended up on TV. I ended up getting interviewed by CBC and ended up on after one of our showcases. And how does that happen? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
My parents get a hold of me and say, "Yeah, we just watched your interview on CBC National," like, because I had my fedora on, and obviously I looked the part, and someone decided to interview me on what I thought about the volunteers in Corner Brook, and all of a sudden you go from
nowhere
nowhere to, even you're still, let's keep it in perspective, you're still nobody, but but it's quite a surreal experience even at that time.
Yeah.
So we had a great time, did a couple showcases, got to take in the whole thing, and then come home. And, by this time, getting some pub gigs at home, and did a little showcase before we actually went to ECMA's, CD launches, and had lots of support from the local paper. Rogers Cable used to have this show called, I can't remember what it was now, or First Local. And, did some interviews and that kind of stuff. And it just kind of took off a little bit. So we get in the studio and recorded another album, and it too got nominated for an ECMA.
So 2 back-to-back albums.
And then all back-to-back, and again, not nominated with Matt this time, but the Huntman Brothers and a couple other bands, and great bands, and just again happy to be nominated. But this time, Dutch Mason Blues Festival decides that all the nominees from that year in the blues category were going to get invited to play at their festival. So in 2010, we get to go play on a huge stage.
Big festival.
Because you played there with us.
Yeah.
And in 2014. 12 or 14. 2014. Yeah. And now the good thing that happened before we went to Dutch, or it would have been too much to handle, that we got because of our first nomination, when Miramichi decided to host Blue Rodeo and Matt Minglewood, the Culture Fest, we got to play on that show earlier in the day, and that was a big stage. So allowed us to be on a bigger stage, in front of a good sized crowd.
Yeah. Get
that feel, and just so you're not like a fish out of water. So when we went to Dutch and we prepared, we practiced our set 100 times, I'm sure. So we went there and it clicked, and we did well.
So it was the same lineup?
Invite back, so. No, when we went to Dutch, we actually, we had, at that time it was Colby Jardine on drums. Jimmy Larson had moved out west, so he was gone. I had Terry on acoustic guitar, Stephen on bass.
Mm-hmm.
Brought Johnny Newman, a local, like he's responsible for probably a lot of local, great musician locally, but I mean, he was a blues guy. So I picked up a lot from Johnny in the short time I got to hang out with and around him. But he came and played harmonica and keyboards. And we had 2 background singers. We had Abby Kierstead, who from Rexton, and we had Giselle Desprez. It was dating Colby at the time.
So this is a full.
So we had 2 backup singers.
Full band.
It was, and it was great because we're on this great big stage, and we could fill it up a little bit. Yeah,
big sound,
and it went well. Yeah, it was a big sound, and it went well. We were well prepared. So we didn't get invited back the next year because they do a rotational thing. So in 2012 we got invited back. 2013 we did Terry and I did they had the acoustic
the tent. Yeah.
We played that next year, and then on the 14th we were back for the last. That was the last one in Truro. They ran one the next year, which you really couldn't call it Dutch Mason Blues Festival.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that day we opened for Monkey Junk and David Wilcox.
Yeah.
If you remember, Head of the Herd and the Highway 125 was there. Yeah. It was a Sunday afternoon show.
Yeah, that was a good.
The
weather was nice.
It's a great festival.
Yeah.
Oh, the weather was.
it was hot. It was warm, but
so yeah. But that festival sadly didn't survive. Had its problems. I think
I think it was legal problems, wasn't
organizer couldn't get along with the.
Yeah.
Well, they had a lot of problems with the city of Truro. They used to be fighting there, but it just didn't work out. I mean, where else are you going to get to go and mingle with big international bands and talent?
I mean, they had Bonnie Raitt.
You know,
they had some big names.
Well, they had Buddy Guy. They had well, that year we were there. It was Lucas Nelson, right? Willie Nelson's son.
Yeah,
was there.
He was on we were on there the Sundays. He would have been the Saturday or the Friday.
Yeah. No, he would have been on Friday. We were on Saturday.
Were we Saturday?
Oh no, we were Sunday.
I thought we were Sunday afternoon. Yeah,
we were Sunday, day. Right? Yeah, the year before was actually that year we went on the 14th. That was Sunday. The Saturday was the Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah,
we didn't go down Saturday.
We didn't get to see them. Yeah,
it was the Blues Brothers was the big show, right?
Yeah.
Right. Hard to keep track of that stuff.
So many names.
To be able to, so many big names, to be able to say that you were on the same stage with Robert Cray and Johnny Lang and, Delbert McClinton, the Georgia Satellites, I mean, those are big names, so that's what I miss about that festival in particular. I mean, you do other festivals and there's some big names and we've been very lucky to share the stage with Matt Anderson a couple times and Monkey Junk. Great bands.
Yeah,
and I've made some great friendships from all of these.
That was my second show with you. The first show was a little warm up, and I think it was at the Well in Miramichi. So it was just a little
in Campbellton,
little bar.
Oh,
and then we did the Dutch.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Did you not go to Campbellton with us?
Yeah, but that was after.
Didn't we go to Campbellton first? Was that after?
That was after.
That was after.
Dutch was my first actual show.
Yeah, we did.
Come up with this big stage with the big projection screens on either side, and I remember the sound guy coming up to me with his iPad, and I was just like, I don't know, just give me everybody, I guess, like ask him what I wanted in my mix, and the big high-end Pearl kit with all the bells and whistles, and I walked on stage and I felt like I was like 10 feet tall. I was like, oh, this is great. Like I just showed up with my drumsticks.
And the sound is good on stage.
And
like you got like you can hear everything. And
heard everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In the hospitality tent, and you get towels and there's food and there's drinks, and it's just like being treated like a king. There's no question. It's incredible.
It was an experience, that's for sure.
Yeah. So by this time we had 3 ECMA nominations. I think by this time we had 1 Music New Brunswick award for blues recording. So you got to the point where all of a sudden you're on the inside. You're now friends with Garrett Mason. You're now friends with Matt Anderson and whoever else. I mean, I used to refer to it as a wonderful fraternity, which is not a fair thing to say because a fraternity is a boys club. Yeah. And then so it's because there's amazing female artists, as you know. Kendra Gale has a voice as good as anybody's.
Yeah, I met Kendra through playing with you at the I think it was at Harvest.
Smoke and Blues Fest. Wasn't maybe that we're down.
Smoking was before Windsor? Harvest, was it?
Yeah.
Harvest was the last show of the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it would have been Smoking Blues.
It would have been Kendra and Warren down in Windsor. We were down there. I remember you went down with your family and camped.
Yeah.
And then came to that would have been 2015, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And there's so many great. So it is really, and I think you would attest to this and confirm that it is a wonderful family. The music family that you make on this journey, and the East Coast, I'm sure it's the same everywhere because I've met musicians from Ontario and Alberta, and they are when you see
they're all
them,
little pockets, right?
And they they'll come out, they see you again, they give you a hug, or it's just a wonderful family, musicians. And I've been in the sports world when I was younger. It never felt like that. Like this here, I mean, I know you could say there's competition, but I don't feel it. Like I don't feel like it's a competitive thing. It's very supportive of each other.
It's kind of both. It's competitive and supportive because you're competing with yourself because you want to do better the next time, but you're also trying to stay on par with everybody else. So everybody's kind of pushing each other to be better. It's sort of like iron sharpening iron kind of thing, right? Like, so you're all lifting each other up. You're all supporting each other, but you're also trying to keep up with each other. So it's kind of a double you know,
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah. But I just love it so much. And you know, as much as I love playing, and I do, and as much as I love recording, I love just being around musicians and making friendships. You know, I love putting on shows. That's why I did Whalen's Barn.
Yeah.
And that's why I did, you know, open mic. And for a year when Steph LaForest and Eden opened up a Dunhu's, and I mean, I hosted a show there every Thursday for a full year. I mean, I enjoy doing that because of the artists I got to bring in and interact with. I mean, I love that part of it as much as I do performing. You know, I love promoting new musicians and kids and mentoring, if you will. I mean,
like the first time I met you, the first time I like legit met you and like got to know you would have been at the MVHS art show that you were putting on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That's where I met you, and that's where I met Dylan Ryan. It's where I would have, well, if I met you, then I would have met Colby and Terry Jr. at the same time. Like, and that's just out of high school, just to get the kids out and get the kids playing. And I don't know how we got asked to play, but it was a good time.
Yeah. I mean, so you would have been playing with Jack at that one.
It was Jack and Sean. Yeah. It was the DiBiase.
I mean, I knew Jack from high school days, you know, so I don't think I taught him, but I was one of the coaches on the high school team. So we got to know each other and common interests in music and that kind of thing. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, I just think the best people, my best friends in the whole world are musicians, in all honesty. You know, those are my best friends. Those are the people that have shared interests that I do. And, you know, but I've also met some great fans, you know, and people that come out and support and you see at festivals or shows. I just love the whole thing about it. I mean, it's euphoria, really, in all honesty. Just getting to do it and the friendships that I've made, you just can't top it. To me, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So I saw you posted the other day that you're doing a rebrand of, I guess, so in the progression of how this is going, like with, you know, talking about how you started and then into the festivals and then, you know, into the more recent stuff with your last CD that you did for the Jacques Downs, Nasty Little Bits. And then you got another one coming out, which you have some more guests on that.
I do.
And then,
well, the thing with how this progressed, the first two albums was just called Terry Whalen. And then Stephen thought, you know, maybe, you know, so the third album we started being Terry Whalen Band. And I was okay with that, but I really never liked, and I think I probably told you this, I never liked the idea of being the Terry Whalen Band. You know, because it's almost a little pretentious to me, a little bit, but it's so hard to rebrand. All of a sudden you're, you know, Puddle of Mud or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so hard to start. You're basically starting over until people know. And different times they played with Terry Whalen and, you know, and I've talked to different people, and, you know, good names that I liked were always used, and you want some kind of blues reference, because as much as I don't want to be labeled as anything, I mean, it is blues-based music, whether it's, I always like the ZZ Top rock and blues type of feel, or maybe even a little bit heavier than that.
Just a little dirty, just a little unpolished.
Absolutely. I don't want it too polished. I want it to be a little rough around the edges, almost as an homage to some of those old blues guys that could almost hardly play guitar, you know, but the feel and the emotion and the stories far is more important than being polished guitar player. So that is really the essence of what I hear and want to be. So during COVID, you know, I mean, a lot of things happened. Obviously I was laid up with my back, COVID, and I thought, now's the time. And I haven't played with a band here in another couple of weeks. It'll be 2 years since we did anything with a band. We did Harvest.
Plus your last one and your next one isn't with the full band. It's your stuff. Yeah,
it is. It is. So the last show I did, we did Harvest 3 nights, Terry and I and Warren Beatty on drums, and went very well, very happy. But I mean, then COVID happened, and COVID's still here. I mean, so I don't know when, I don't know when we're ever going to get to play as a band. You know, I'm not out pushing either, but there's not a lot of opportunities. We're going back to Harvest. in a couple of weeks, but it's just Terry and I going to be a duo, really stripped down. Instead of 3 nights, it's only 2 nights, but very happy to be back to the Luna Rogue. We love it there. You've played there.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful venue.
Yep.
And anybody in town knows where they can come and see us. So they even drop in for 5 minutes or an evening or 2 nights or 3 nights. You know what I mean? You know where you can find us. So anyway, I've been thinking about this rebranding for a long time and was watching a documentary on blues, and someone said and mentioned a term that had to do with voodoo magic, and they mentioned about this powder, hot powder, keeps evil spirits and hellhounds away. And I just thought, man, I like that. And I went and did a search for band names, hot powder, and there was nothing. I said, because a lot of different names I type in, I thought of Thunder Kings one time and it was taken, so I typed in hot powder, nothing. So I've been sitting on it for a little while, and we're getting close, hopefully, to get out as a band, and whatever form that's going to be, because that's still in the works. I decided when it starts back up, because I go and do solo shows, I do duo shows with Terry, I do a duo show with John O'Reilly, I've done it with Phil Sutherland, so I do solo shows, duo shows. You're going to see us as a band. It's going to be Terry Whalen and Hot Powder. And maybe somewhere down the road, it'll just be Hot Powder once they get branded enough,
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense to transition because people know it as the Terry Whalen Band. Right. So there's your name and association. So yeah, it's a good way to transition into that.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned hot powder. They thought it was cocaine or something. And I had a little chuckle over that. Yeah. If anyone knows me, they know it's not about cocaine, because I'm as sober as you get.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, I'd like there to be a blues reference, and that's the reference to its hot powder is a little, concoction that they made to keep evil spirits and hellhounds away. So nice. I thought it was kind of cool. So now you got to, every time I say the name, you're going to have to tell people where the name came from, and that's okay.
Yeah, well, they'll ask. They'll get it. Eventually they'll stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I always loved, there's lots of great names out there, like Ross Nielsen and the Suffering Bastards.
Yeah.
It's just a great name.
It's a great name.
George
Thorogood and
Delaware Destroyers.
Yeah.
Matchstick Mike and the Chain Smoking Altar Boys,
right?
The band out of Fredericton. Well, Mike lives in Miramichi now, but I just those names are just great names, and I wanted to come up with something cool. Now I wouldn't say Hot Powder is, but it's almost like the Powder Blues Band, or it's it's nothing too witty, but it's to me it's not paying homage to the blues culture. So
like what was it? The Glamour Puss Blues Band. Remember that?
Yes. Yes. Well, it's funny you mentioned Glamour Puss Blues Band, because their lead guitar player, Travis Furlong, is one of my guests on the new album.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
I don't know if you know Travis or not.
I've never met him, but I mean, I've seen,
Yeah. Locally. Travis actually used to work at the Parlor in Moncton, the secondhand music store. And he opened up a new spot called Nerdful Things in Moncton.
Him and Randy and Randy made our t-shirts.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I got like I say, Travis is one of those people that I've gotten to know through the years, and I've had Travis up at O'Donoghue's as a guest on one of my Thursday nights, and he's a great guitar player. Great guitar player and a great guy.
So when do you think that album's going to be put out? Like,
well, it's been a struggle COVID. Because COVID slowed things down. My health issues have slowed things down. It should have been out a year and a half ago. So we're like almost 3 years been working on this, but it's also changed, and COVID kind of helped a little bit, because some of my guests that end up playing on it probably wouldn't have been able to play on it had they been out touring all the time. So because they were home, and probably, I mean, if I'm being honest, Matt Anderson is on it, and Steve Mariner, Garrett Mason, Ross Nielsen, John Campbell, and there's some locals too,
so is this
the who's who?
Is this album going to be Terry Whalen and the All Stars? Like,
well,
those
Terry
are some...
Whalen,
significant
Yeah,
names in the blues community in the
yeah.
Atlantic and into Ontario and those areas.
It's very humbling. I mean, it just shows the community and the family that's out there,
Mhm.
that all these people, agreed to play on it.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's
mean, this
also the
is a
connections that you've made over the years. Like this is
it
a
it yeah.
culmination in what you've been doing all this time.
Oh, absolutely. There's no
Yeah.
question. I've been very fortunate, and it's not lost on me one bit. The friendships I've made. I mean, friendship I have with you. I mean, we probably never meet if it's not through music,
Yeah.
And I'm just so appreciative. But yeah, I'm humbled, And there's some names like Bobby Cameron used to be in a band with John Campbell. John, he's in Edmonton now. Ross Nielsen's in Saskatchewan. Steve Mariner's in Monkey Junk. He's also a harmonica player with Colin James. He's playing some bass now with David Wilcox. I mean, these are pro guys.
These are guys that are on that world stage.
Like I wasn't even going to ask Garrett. I mean, Garrett's a guy, he doesn't even record himself anymore.
No.
And last summer, Garrett was playing at a Donahue's, and I opened for him. And he goes, "Hey, man, what are you up to?" And I said, "I'm just doing this album, and all the proceeds are going to go to the SPCA and animal rights protection. As you know, that's very important to us and our family."
Yeah.
He goes, "Man, yeah, I'd love to play in that." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, send me something." So, like,
not every day you get a guy like him asking to play for you.
Like, to me, Garrett Mason is one of the top 5 guitar players on the planet. I mean, I would put him on stage with anybody. Yeah, like, no one does what he does. Like, he just, and for him to offer to be included on this is just, and look, and all the other names I mentioned as well, all of them. Like, like to me, I'm still just Terry Whalen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm nobody. Like, and these guys, like I've told this name to a few people, and they're like, "Man, like nobody could get that," Like, so it's very humbling. It shows the friendships I've made, and maybe the respect that I kind of have garnered or gained through my years doing this.
Well, it's you've always been a very honest and direct and friendly person. There's no bullshit. There's no, what you see is what you get. So I mean, and that pays through, right? So I think it's well deserved.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And you know what? There was others that offered to be on it, but because of COVID, they couldn't get into a studio, and we just ran out of time. And I won't name names, but some very big names. Like I could have had everybody. I mean, so all it means is down the road, I'll include other people. But this album has 21 different people playing on it. Without
how many tracks?
14 tracks. Yeah. So I've done some, like Ed Bolter is a photographer out of Halifax that I've met.
Yep.
And he co-wrote a couple songs with me. I became friends with a guy here in Miramichi, John LeBlanc. He and I wrote a song. Then he and his brother lives in Ireland, who I've never met, wrote another song. His name is Ron LeBlanc. I got Paul Milner, who's worked with Keith Richards, Queensryche, Sash Jordan, Eddie Grant. I mean,
didn't he record and produce your album?
2 Steps Forward.
Yeah, which is the one that I joined in for the tour. Yeah.
Right. Yes, he did. He produced and engineered that one. Yeah. So he's going to mix and master. Now that studio at that time was in PEI. He's now in St. John.
Okay, a little closer.
Studio. Yeah, much closer. His studio is called Trillium House Studios, and doing very well. Still working with big names, and very much absorbed into the St. John music scene. Working with a lot of the musicians in St. John. Working with Jeff Liberty, releasing some albums. An artist, working with artists. Actually, working with Jimmy Lingley of Miramichi on some stuff. So. I've man, of course Terry's on it. Some of the local guys are on it. Tim Irving's doing some Hammond organ on it.
Yeah.
I have Warren Beatty's in St. John, but he's playing drums on it. Phil Sutherland's playing most of the drums on it because we're here.
Great drummer.
Great drummer. Yeah. Jeremy Bork. I don't remember Jeremy. No. Jeremy he lives in Riverview now, but he graduated from Miramichi Valley incredible player. It's Steve Morris kind of guitar player. He's playing on a track. Andy Daly. You may not know Andy. Andy's a great player. He's a guy that I've been hanging out with a little bit. He's playing on some stuff. Tim Glant. It was Tim and Todd Glant are twins. Todd's a drummer. Tim's a guitar player. He's playing on a track. So we got some local flavor too. And there's, like I say, there was all kinds of other East Coast and otherwise musicians that just because of COVID and no access to a studio,
right,
couldn't be involved. But
so is that that organ that Timmy's playing, is that the same one that Deep Purple used?
No, I don't think he ever got that one back. He had two.
Okay. Okay.
It is a Hammond C3. I think the one he sold to John Lord was a Hammond B3.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Because I remember him talking about that
yes.
a couple of years ago. That he had that in his store.
Yeah. I think the one he sold to John Lord was one that he had basically was new, played and was at his house. The one that he used to use when he was younger is at the store, and then that's the one he played on with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's if this ends up being the last thing I ever do, I'm very proud of it. I mean, I'm writing to this day, so there's more material, there's more desire to do another one, but this isn't out yet. So I mean, I'm still focused on this, but it's very humbling to be able to say the names of people that are playing on this.
Yeah. So the new project under Hot Powder, do you already have some rockin' tunes going with that, like some originals in the works?
Oh yeah. Now, one of the things I will say, and because of COVID, and this as well as anybody, you go out and do festivals, you do some of your own stuff, but you do a lot of covers. Blues kind of lends itself to that. I really want to refocus on doing a lot more originals, and that's dusting off some stuff from back off even the first couple albums. So we've been doing some jamming and stuff here in the garage this summer and really refocusing on originals. I'd really like to and not that I won't do covers anymore, but certainly less. I think, I've got, with this new album, I got 7 albums. There's some 7 albums worth of enough good stuff out there that we can put on a full show with our own stuff. And the new album, I'm really pleased with the material on the new album. I can't wait for you to hear.
I can't wait to hear it. Yeah.
Some of it's heavier stuff, in the direction that I really want to get back to. So yeah, I
enjoyed playing the heavier stuff when I was.
I know you did. I did too.
Tone it down.
Yeah. No, I think like Jack was by playing bass the other night, and he's, I think he's being sincere and saying that like this is some good stuff. It's good toe tapping, in the chest type of music, and
we need that.
Yeah, we do, and I think that's the best version of me.
I agree.
Yeah, I do. So, and if we're gonna sync or whatever that means by doing our own stuff instead of doing more covers, I can live with that.
I doubt it. You've got a reputation for the originals. Those albums that were nominated, one that's where you got your success was in your original material. So, I wouldn't think that the covers are gonna. Losing covers isn't going to slow you down.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, there is, look, people go to the different venues. They like to hear songs that they're familiar with, who doesn't like.
But there are party bands for that purpose.
There is. That's true.
Right. So if you people see a band name and they see it, and I won't name any names, but they know that band, that's what they're going to get. And I think with your track record, when they see the Terry Whalen name, whether it's Terry Whalen Band, Terry Whalen Squared, or Hot Powder, what it's going to become, they know that that's associated with some rock and blues and original material. So I think you're good.
How come you didn't kick me in the rear end when you were playing in the band and kept me focused on that?
I tried.
You didn't kick me hard enough.
No. Well, I was trying to go through the bass drum. So
yes, exactly.
Hey, at that time I was the hired gun. I wasn't going to ruffle any feathers.
We had some great shows though.
Yeah,
we had some great shows.
Yeah. There was some
I
good
think
times.
what I was telling the guys the other night was the show we did in the tent at Harvest in the
Mhm.
Hoodoo House tent. That was a great show. We started that first song. The tent was almost empty, and it
Yeah.
just when we started playing, within 2 minutes before the end of the first song, it was filled. It was like someone turned on a vacuum cleaner and pulled the crowd in from the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
And we were
It was
supposed
just
to
one
do
of
an
those.
acoustic set. That's
I
what you
know,
told
you're
me, was an
right.
acoustic set. You brought your acoustic guitar, and we
Yeah.
did not play an acoustic set.
No. Oh, but it was a great show. That,
Yeah.
you and I can talk about the great shows that you and I were part of. I mean, that was a big show. Playing
Yeah.
in the arena in Campbellton for Salmon Fest was a fun show.
Yeah.
And great getting to meet some other bands and hanging out. To me, that's as much fun, the backstage stuff and becoming friends. You made friends with Carl Rorty there.
Yeah.
From
Oh man,
drummer
he's a
from,
great drummer.
yeah.
Yeah. I'd never seen anybody play that hard using traditional grip. Like, I'm a match grip guy. He plays it the other way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
man, that whip, like I think he used my snare drum and used one and some of my sticks. And the snare drum head came back with a great big dent in it. And I'd never seen anyone do that playing. It's easy to do when you're playing like match grip, just because you get that
Yeah,
weight. But the snap
yeah.
he had with the traditional, he dented my drum head. I was like, how did you even, like, I even told him afterwards, I was like, how the fuck did you do that? He's like, I don't know, just got the whip, I guess.
Yeah.
So no, it
Wow.
was a great show, and they were a good band. They were tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who's the
Yeah.
guitar player
Good.
from there? Lead
Oh
guitar
my
player.
God.
I have him on my Facebook.
I was just talking to him the other. You just got a new guitar.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
saw that.
God. I got a brain cramp. Oh my goodness.
He's gonna kill us.
Incredible guitar player.
Yeah.
Incredible guitar player. How come he's going
Moving
to
on.
hate me?
It's fine.
Yes. Moving on.
So the fall's coming.
Yeah.
Teaching season's coming, so you're going to be having a lot of time focusing on that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things, like, because you teach art, which lends
I
itself
do.
to music?
Yeah.
What
Well,
are some of the things that you do in class that you could, like, kind of bridge the two worlds together? Like,
yeah. Well, I do teach art, but I also teach music. I teach
yeah.
a music therapy course.
Okay.
So I do songwriting with a lot of at-risk kids, kids that are dealing with issues. I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
I developed that course here locally. So, but in art, I do things like album covers,
Mm-hmm.
album art.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I don't know, like music is on my mind all the time. Even when I'm at school, I'm always thinking about music. I mean, that is my passion. I mean, I love teaching. It's a great job. But anytime I get a chance to work with students, songwriting, or, like say album artwork, I'm always trying to incorporate that, that passion, and hopefully, I don't know, just anything I can do, and I also tell them, look, I mean, there's young bands coming up. They may want someone to do artwork, for posters or album covers, or, so nice to be able to do that. So, uh, I
These are
always
like
try
high school senior, like grade 11 and 12.
anywhere from grade 9 to 12. I teach
Okay.
9, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay.
So, and sometimes I have students, I have them 3 and 4 times through that time,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some incredibly talented kids,
Yeah.
students,
Yeah. Of course.
artistically unbelievable. You don't see as much music as we used to. We used to have like 3 and 4 variety shows a year. We couldn't have enough to, even without, COVID has obviously eliminated get-togethers, but
Get-togethers, yeah.
there's not a lot of musicians like there used to be. The halls used to be full of kids playing guitar at lunchtime, and we'd have a variety show, and there'd be all kinds of kids. I don't know. I think kids, sadly, I think kids are wrapped up in their phones and video games too much instead of living life, and playing guitar, or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
You just see, even clubs, sports teams have a lot less kids playing sports. I think right now they may not even have a high school football team in Miramichi Valley. They don't have enough kids.
Really?
Just kids aren't getting involved. They're not active.
Football's a hard sport, though.
It is. You're right. It is.
And really, I mean, I know football is a big sport. It's bigger in the States, but I think the younger kids should not be playing football until they're like past high school. I think they should start playing football probably in college. But I mean, then you don't get those developmental years. I get that. But as far as, trauma and injuries, like you get
Yep.
kids that are not out of high school yet, and they're already messed up for life,
Yep.
you know?
Agree. Yep.
So it's kind of a hard catch 22 there. Like, as far as being able to develop the talent to play at that high school, at that college level,
Mhm.
because they won't have the experience at that time, but
Having
it's a
done
safety
both,
thing.
having done the sports, and I had a
Mhm.
lot of, was on provincial championship teams, I would trade all that in to start playing music in younger. I think music offers a lot of social interaction, discipline. I mean, anyone that takes the time and dedication to learn to play an instrument and be able to play with other people, it's business skills. I mean, there's so much that comes out of that. I forget the the posers. I mean that and the drug culture and all that. Like, I mean, that I'm not part of any of that. I mean, to me, that's not what it's about. Being in a band and getting drunk or high, and to me, in its pure form, music. Like, I just don't know where we would be as a culture without music. I mean, you look at music in movies, but music to me, at its core level, is therapy.
Yeah,
Uh,
it triggers emotion, right? You
yeah,
can
but I
you
mean,
can
it can
when you're
also
feeling
heal
bad,
you.
when you're
Yeah,
feeling down, you're feeling bad, sad, angry, there's a music genre to help you get through those times,
hmm
right? Like that, there's a genre for it. Like that's why I love all genres. I
hmm
don't, even certain genres that I'm not as big a fan of, I still appreciate what they do. Like,
hmm
I'm not the biggest rap guy, but there's a reason for that music, right? And heavy metal where it's got aggression, and you know, I don't play metal, but I listen to it because there are days where I need that, and I think that's something that everybody can relate to. That music is the universal language of the world, and I think
absolutely.
it's important for kids to hear it, and you know what's the word I'm looking for? Drawing a mind blank, but you get what I'm saying. Like they need that connection to be able to interpret what they have internally and express it
It,
outward.
to me, it's the most. It's
Mhm.
the most. It's the best way to express yourself.
Mhm.
If you're angry, you can get it out with
Yeah.
some, heavy chords and loud music, and maybe that's going to keep you from blowing your top out in public. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yep.
just think the greatest medicine on the planet is
Mhm.
music.
Mhm.
I just believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy to be able to do it. Pure and
Yeah.
simple, just to be able to do it. And I do it for myself, but I mean, you're out playing and you see someone tapping their toes to something you're playing. That's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
Just at its core essence. Forget about anything else.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about fame. It's not about fortune. Obviously, most musicians don't get very wealthy from doing this. It costs a
No.
lot of money to go out and tour, and these people
Mhm.
that are touring across. And I won't name names, but there's some New Brunswick bands that have been very successful and do a Canadian tour and come back home basically breaking even if they're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no big money in it, and I think the average person that is not a musician, they go and see someone playing. Oh, isn't that person lucky to be doing that? And they
Mhm.
are. Look,
Mhm.
very few people get to stand on stage like we have done in
Mhm.
front of a big crowd. There's probably no better feeling in the world, but you don't see all the work that went into that to get
Yeah.
to that 1 hour show or 40-minute show or whatever it is. It's a
Mhm.
ton of work
Mhm.
and time and effort, but it was worth every second of blood, sweat, and tears to do that.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's the perfect way to end this podcast. That's a great message, and it's 100% true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And I'm not looking for any credit or pat in the back. I mean, there's, I look back and how hard I've worked to become a singer at a late age. Because I
Mhm.
mean, I didn't start singing until I was 42 or 43.
Yeah.
And I get compliments on my voice. It's a niche voice. I mean, you're not going to hear me on the radio on top 40. It's not that type of voice, but
Mhm.
I've learned to use what it's good for,
Mhm.
and but I just express myself. I think
Yeah.
we all just express ourselves. That's all we need to do. Just
Mhm.
be honest and just be yourself.
Awesome.
That's all I can say. But it's to me, it's the essence of life, music, and the friendships.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Thanks.
Dre, man, thanks so much for reaching out. It's always a pleasure to get together and talk. And this is a cool podcast that you got going. Really, I've watched all your episodes, and I really appreciate you.
Just getting the wheels turning, getting it spinning, trying to get good at it. So eventually I'll get there, but it's work in progress.
You're doing good. Doing very good.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, buddy.
All right. Well, hopefully see you soon in person.
Take care.
All right. Peace. All right. Thank you.
All right. That was my conversation with Terry Whalen. Looking forward to hearing and seeing the new lineup with the Hot Powder, and can't wait to hear his new album. There's going to be, like he said, there's so many people on it. Very blessed to have those people come to him and want to be a part of that project. So congratulations in advance. I can't wait to hear it. So I'm sure it'll be great. As for the conversation, he's just a straight up guy, a real genuine person that cares deeply for people, wants to see others do well, and anything he can do to help, he will. And I know that firsthand from experience. It was a great time when I played in his band. Like I said, we played a lot of great shows. Just some good times on the road with Terry, and I wish him nothing but the best. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you checked the previous episodes and the next one's coming. I've got some more people lined up, and I'm just going to keep this ball rolling. I'm having a great time doing it, and I hope you enjoy listening or watching or whatever. I don't want to plead for likes and subscribes. I'm not that guy. So if you want to go ahead and do it, if not, well, we'll see you on the flip side. All right. So take care of each other, and love to you all. Ciao.